recording. Yeah. I'm here chatting with Christine Sarno. I've known Christine for a few years now. I was lucky enough to shoot some branding images for her a few years ago that I still love. She's like the most photogenic person ever, you guys. And so fun to shoot with. But she is coming to us today to talk about some financial planning, some strategies, get us ready for 2021. So I'm just going to let her kind of introduce herself to you guys, give her her elevator pitch, and let us know what she's got going on right now.
Awesome. Renee, thank you for having me. And by the way, I have never looked so good as I did when you did that photo shoot of me. I look at those pictures and, from time to time, and I think to myself, man, Renee gives good photos. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Of course.
And thank you for having me today to, share with your community. I'm so honored and inspired to do this. And really, I just, to kind of take a step back, one of the reasons why it's important, I think, to just be able to kind of share this message and connect with your community and other people is the fact that we've all been dealing with a very challenging year, right? On so many fronts. And I think the curveballs as it relates to what's been going on with the economy, a number of different industries, specifically in entertainment and creative, have been impacted. And it's hit most of us really hard in the place that hurts really hard, which is in our pocketbooks, right? So,
yeah, for sure.
And it's created obviously more anxiety and a lot less of the peace of mind that we like to have, just to feel good about how we're living our lives and how we're planning for the future. So I think, today was just a wonderful opportunity to speak with you and with your community to kind of level set on some of the things that we should be thinking about this year as we plan for 2021 so that we can look forward and have a much more positive outlook on next year, just knowing that there are things that we can do to make ourselves stronger financially. And just a little bit about me, so my background, I've been in the corporate side of the world for probably the last 20 to 25 years, specifically working with tech startups, media-based companies, and really my background has been in sales. And in the last 7 years, I've also been professionally coaching women. Doing that has been my heart song. I came from a background where my mom immigrated to the United States from another country. English was a second language for her, and she didn't have money or resources of her own. And unfortunately, she found herself in a very volatile marriage with my dad. And so my sister and I, we grew up watching firsthand how the lack of money and lack of education limited her choices in life. So whereas my sister grew up she became an accountant. She wanted to learn how to control money, right? I went into sales because I wanted to learn how to make it, right? So that, I could actually have a financial independence platform and be able to have those options and choices in my life. So if I was in a toxic relationship or had a toxic work environment, I knew I could pivot. And I think as a function of coaching women, both on the corporate side of my life and specifically one-on-one with professional coaching, we would have these great conversations about increasing our income opportunities. But then the conversation would lend itself quite organically to what should I be doing with my money to implement this financial independence platform? How do I make my personal life stronger, my personal financial life stronger, as well as my business? And so because of that, I naturally segued into the field of financial advising. So that's where I am today.
I love that. I love that because there is nothing better than that feeling of, and I can definitely attest to that. Knowing that I'm going to be okay no matter what. Knowing that I can be independent, make my own money, make my own way. That's something that I will always talk about as being something that I really would love for more women, especially, to understand. So I love that that's your thing. Yeah, I love it. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about what we can be doing right now, in particular for looking at 2021, talking about how can we prepare for a financially stronger year. That's the thing that I've kind of been talking about for a while with everybody here in this group and also my marketing group, Momentum. Just, prepare, right? So that's the thing. Like, yeah, we were kind of hit out of nowhere with this thing this year, but it's a really great reminder that we really should just be preparing in general for whatever, because we really, at the end of the day, we don't know what's coming, right? So as we can only control ourselves and what we're doing and our personal lives and our finances. And so as long as we have that kind of set in place, I think that it gives you that peace of mind. And so what can we be doing? Like, what some of the things, I know you wanted to kind of go over these like 3 main things. What do you think is something that we should be looking at doing?
All right. So listen, and everybody's at a different place. There's no
Yeah.
right or wrong,
Yeah.
right? But there are some people that are just really disciplined and have been disciplined savers their whole life. And
Not
there are
me,
some
by the
people
way.
that, right?
That's not me.
It is not human nature. It is really not human nature to save. It really isn't. And most of us, as we continue to make an income, right, we tend to start to live at the income level that we're making.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that is just human nature. We love the instant gratification. We want to know that, hey, you know what, I got this great project, or I signed this great deal, or I got a raise or a promotion. So I am going to take that vacation. I am going to buy that expensive bag or pair of shoes. I deserve it, and deservingly so. But one of the things that I do want to mention, and this year has really kind of made this very apparent, is that you have to learn to save. You really do. And fundamentally, think of it this way: you are paying yourself first. Think about paying your rent. Think about paying your car payment. Think about, your mortgage. Putting money aside every month is mission critical. And I think when you're also in a space where you're in entertainment or the arts, or you're creative and you're self-employed or you're freelance, it is super important to make sure you have what I like to call, this is what I call the peace of mind fund. I don't necessarily like to call it an emergency fund. Most people understand that as emergency fund, but emergency already creates this disconnect. Like, it's,
Right.
oh my gosh, like, I don't even want to think about that because that sounds so negative. I need money for an emergency. This is like peace of mind empowerment fund. This is like, I got some choices and I can say F you to something that I don't want to do, or I might have to pay for now, but it's going to be okay. And I do believe that at this stage of the game too, most financial advisors will say have at minimum 3 months in the bank. I'm much more conservative, and I would say at minimum you should have 6. And if you're self-employed or freelance, think about having more than that. I would say even 9. In a pandemic year like this, cash is king, and it's important to know that you can pay those immediate fixed expenses. And this is one of the things that creates peace of mind at night, So really think about, again, this is something else that I would recommend doing. Some of us have done this in the past. Some people are just super dedicated and committed to this, and they've got Excel spreadsheets that they've already created. I really recommend, if you haven't done so already, is to sit down and really do a budget. And just take a look. Yeah.
Is that like, what strategies do you suggest for that? So like, are there certain things that you think work, or that you've seen work better for like saving strategies, debt reduction, things that kind of, especially for people, because again, myself included in this, I'm a creative, and yes, I love the business side of it and I love teaching it and I love making money, but that isn't my baseline. It's something that I have to kind of remind myself to do, right? And I've gotten a lot better about it the older I've gotten and the more, knowledge that I've gathered, but it still isn't my baseline. And so most of us in this group is probably not our baseline. So what strategies have you found that are really, easy to implement, basically? Because again, most of us are working nonstop and we're just kind of like working. A lot of the people in this group are just building their businesses. And so they're still trying to get a handle on a lot of that stuff too, right? So what's something simple that we can even just kind of implement now?
Super, super simple, I would say, is just to create an Excel spreadsheet. Or if you're the type of person that likes to write it down on paper, there's also, you can Google budget spreadsheets, personal finance. You just Google that, and there's so many different websites that'll offer up something that you can do online. But just what it's really important, think about it this way. Think about all your fixed expenses, what you've got to spend every month, whether it's your mortgage or your rent, what your utilities are, phone bill, right? What you spend on cable, et cetera. And just create, right? Basically a category or column for each, and take a look at your fixed nut, what it costs to run your life every month. And this is not including dining out or trips or, you know, buying that new television or whatever it is. But understand what it's going to cost you to live your life every month, right? And then knowing that sometimes, especially in the creative world, income can go up and down throughout the year.
For sure.
Right? Maybe use 2019 in terms of what you reported for your taxes, your annual gross, right? Divide that by 12, and that gives you a sense of what your monthly income is, right? Your average monthly income is. And see, this is a good opportunity. It's an exercise to see if you are spending more than you're actually making. Is there areas that you might be able to cut back? If there is discretionary, right, which means that your income coming in is actually exceeding, right, what's going out, take a look at the difference. And let's figure out what that number is to be comfortably uncomfortable to put into savings or to invest for your future.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I'm just conceptually, you know, these are one of the things that, you know, those of us in the financial planning space will actually sit down and work through.
Oh yeah, for sure. It has to be individualized, obviously, for everybody, depending on what they are. But like, just real simple, just like I like to try and tell, even just in my own coaching with photographers, is if you know something is a barrier for you, and if you know spreadsheets are like your kryptonite, then use something that's going to be useful to you. So if it's an app, if it's writing it down, but you have to kind of hold yourself accountable to that too, and make that a level of importance, you know, in your life and your business. But just remove the barrier. Like, don't, you know, because those barriers become those excuses. Like, well, I don't know how to use Excel or whatever. Well, that becomes the excuse for not doing that budget. But at the end of the day, what's really keeping you from doing that, right? So, you know, you have to kind of look at it. You have to really be willing to look at it with, and your business as a whole, with honest eyes, and really, you know, take in those pieces that might be, like you said, uncomfortable. So yes.
And just basic rule of thumb, think of it this way in terms of how much generally you should be saving. You should be saving anywhere to 15 to 20% of your annual gross income, right? So if you're making $100,000 a year, you should be tucking away 20.
Okay.
So basic rule of thumb, just in terms of helping you to become financially stronger.
Okay.
Most
That's
of us,
awesome.
listen, most live outside of what they're making. And so what this does is it kind of gives you a chance to kind of pull back the curtain. And like you said, be honest with yourself, and no, this isn't about restricting yourself, but paying yourself first to put you in a position to be financially stronger, to be more confident, right? To be able to have more choices in life about how you want to live your life.
I like that little reframe, and that's really important because for me, even, I know just my whole life, you know, I didn't grow up with money, right? I mean, I didn't grow up with, you know, in poverty, but we never had a lot. So there's this part of me, right? And that's just something I've had to look at with myself too. There's that part of me that's like, well, I deserve that, right? Like, I want to have that. And it's not like handbags or jewelry or anything like that. It's like equipment. It's geeky stuff, you know, phones, that kind of stuff. But whatever it is, like, I'm like, oh, well, you know, life is short, and, you know, that's the kind of thing. And travel too. Travel is another one of my things. So I like that little reframe of, you know, instead of like thinking about it in terms of what you're missing out on, or what you're like, oh, I have to save, or I have to save for my emergency. Instead, thinking of it as, I'm paying myself. This is, you know what I mean? Like, I've worked really hard for this, and I deserve to put this away for that security and that peace of mind. So I like that little frame.
And can I add one more thing to that? I do appreciate that expression, life is short, in that, yes, we should be enjoying our life and living our life. But to be honest, You look at actuarial tables, life is long. And
Mm-hmm.
most of
Mm-hmm.
us as women are living well into our 90s. And there's a real concern because we think about the money that we're making in our earning years. And when we
Right.
think about retirement at 65, I mean, look, the reality is that most of us are going to be living another 30 plus years. Think about the same amount of time we're spending working, but now we have to rely on the income and our savings in those next 30 years, that phase of our life, to continue on with life.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why it is so important. That's why I'm just saying, enjoy your life,
Absolutely.
right? It's not either or, it's
Balance.
paying
Yeah.
yourself first and living your life, enjoying your life, and figuring out how to be able to do both.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So what kind of protection strategies? I know you mentioned that when we were chatting earlier about, kind of some things that we could talk about. You had mentioned some protection strategies. What do you think some of those would be for us to be thinking about?
1,000,000%. More and more, especially when I work with women, I want to take a step back before we go into protection
Okay, sure.
strategies, because I really do want to emphasize this. One of the reasons why I love speaking with women is that at the end of the day, we are such an underserved market as it relates to financial education. It's not even funny. And it's not our
Mm-hmm.
fault. I mean, first of all, I really wish that financial education was taught in school. I mean, these are
Yes,
basic skill sets that I think our kids should be getting, but if they,
absolutely.
so it's incumbent upon us to try to teach that at home. But if we don't have all the information and skills, it's really hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you think about it, even as recent as 2019, less than 15 to 20% of wealth advisors and financial advisors in this country are women. And so there's already a disconnect in terms of Mars Venus for those of
Yeah,
us that want to speak with a financial advisor, but may not necessarily feel comfortable
totally.
in terms of connecting, in terms of communication. Most women want to know how financial decisions make them feel, right? And a
Right.
lot of men, generally, when they speak with another male financial advisor, they just want to talk about returns. Like, dude, how much money can you make me, right? And then if you
Mm-hmm.
think about women in general, when we do hang out and speak, we talk about our families, our kids, self-care. All these are all important things, but we don't sit around a dinner table, pour a glass of wine, and go, how's the S&P 500 treating you today, right? So we don't talk about this stuff. So it's not part of our immediate world. And that's, and
Yeah.
again, it's about an opportunity to create more awareness, right, to help us make financially stronger. So I'm going to pivot now to the insurance piece and really about the protection piece. What a lot of us, I think, don't realize until we start going through our own experiences in life where either it's happened to us or a loved one has gotten sick. Someone we love has gotten cancer or has needed surgery and has been out of work for a year or 2 or 3 years, and that has had a major impact to the income in the household, that we start to understand how things that can happen that are unforeseen and unprepared for can completely decimate
Yes,
what we've been doing
for
financially,
sure.
right? And so I can't emphasize this enough, that as young as we can, as early as we can, at our most healthiest we are, it is super important to look into creating what I call the bubble wrap for your financial plans. The most
Mm-hmm.
well-laid plans where you're putting money into savings and you're trying to pay off, credit card debt, and you're putting money into the market, to try to get yourself financially stronger. If you're
Right.
out of work for a year or two and you're pulling from funds and rapidly depleting them, that could just be, that's like I said, it can be
Yeah.
completely, it's an emotionally, discouraging. It could have such a challenging impact. So with that said, what I really do recommend is that women especially look into two things, right? One is disability insurance, long-term disability insurance. And the reason why I talk about long-term disability insurance, if you're lucky enough to get some from an employer, if you're W-2, most employers include that in a cafeteria plan. They get a tax break for offering that to you, and so they'll cover your income, right, up to about 60%, which is taxable to you. Okay, so there's some coverage there, but generally, most of us, if we look at the numbers, we realize that that's not going to cover our monthly nut. So if you don't get that through an employer, right, what I recommend is that you look into getting that for yourself. You can get your own long-term disability insurance, and essentially what that does, or supplement what you already get from an employer to at least bring you up to about 90%. So
Okay.
if for some reason you're out with back surgery, right?
Yeah.
Or, you're under treatment for cancer and you can't work for a year or two, you get better, right? But your monthly expenses are covered. Your cost of living is covered. Okay, health insurance will cover the medical bills, but they're not going to be paying your mortgage, and they're not going to be paying
Exactly.
right, for your groceries and stuff like that. And disability insurance is literally, it's you're hedging your bet, right?
Okay.
To make sure that you're not missing out on a year or 2 or 3 years or potentially longer of not having income coming in. So that's number one.
Okay.
And then number two is life insurance. And again, I truly, truly recommend life insurance. Can be so inexpensive. I was working with a client, she's 35 years old, and she was able to lock into $1.5 million, 1.5 million of life insurance, but she's going to have coverage for the next 20 years. Should anything happen to her, right, her loved ones, family members that she's designated as a beneficiary, will receive that money, lump sum, and tax-free. A lot of people don't realize that when you have something like that, that creates immediate estate that you can leave to your kids, to a parent that might be dependent on you in old age.
This was a big thing for me. I went through like a major panic moment because I had 3 kids, as you know, I had 3 kids under the age of 2, and my oldest has autism. So when I think it was when the twins were about 1.5 years old, I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen if something happened to us? Like I went through like major anxiety attacks over this, and it was not good. And one of the first things that, luckily I had some people in my life who were like, Renee, you guys need life insurance. Like you need to find some good life insurance. You need to make sure that you kind of make sure everything is written the way it needs to be written as well. Like, cause we did a will and trust in addition to the life insurance. Just doing that, I could exhale. Like I could sleep knowing that if something happened, because it wasn't until I went through the whole process with the lawyer for the trust that I didn't realize what would happen to my kids if I didn't have that in place. And it terrified me. Like, God forbid my son with autism just be put into a system until someone else. No, none of that was going to happen.
It's so important.
Oh God. And we had to make sure we had the right kind of insurance and enough of it to cover how, because they were babies at the time. They were really young. Obviously that changes as your kids get older too. Like you have to kind of reevaluate things. And we just kind of reevaluated things a couple years ago because my kids are adults now. So like, it's a whole different thing too. So that's one of the things I'm sure that you counsel people on as well, especially women, like make sure that you're paying attention to what you do have in place. First of all, put it in place. Second of all, see how that changes too. Right.
Right. And that's part of the I think what I would say, the urgency of looking into these things sooner than later, because unfortunately, the longer you wait, a couple things can happen aside from hopefully, knock on wood, those catastrophic inevitables. But the fact that if potentially you do get sick, right, it will affect your insurability. It'll affect how much it costs to obtain that insurance, or you may not be insurable. So when you're young, when you're healthy, when, and you've got time and a long time horizon, I really recommend looking into it. And even for this particular client that I referenced, she was blown away that the monthly premium for her insurance to have that type of coverage was literally like 2 or 3 glasses of wine going out at like a month.
Yes.
It's, we're talking like very inexpensive. And I just, so super, super important.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you brought that up because that's something I always tell people too. And it always shocks me when I even see people my age who never really put that in place. I'm like, guys,
I think,
it's a scary thought. You don't want to think about it too. That's the other thing. Like everybody's like, well, I don't want to think about it. And I don't want to like put the emphasis on it. But unfortunately, it is one of those things that we really kind of do need to think about for the health and safety and of our kids mainly, you know what I mean, in their future. And it's not like you have to think about it every day. You do it, you put in place, and then it's done. Like you don't have to like live there every day in your head,
Right.
right?
And it's
So
such an easy process. It really
it
is.
really
You
is.
think about it really doesn't take that much time
Absolutely.
to lock into
Absolutely.
something like this. And and we go back to that whole, this is one very easy, inexpensive way to create peace of mind. Really
Yeah,
to create peace of
absolutely.
mind about your future. Yeah.
And you guys watching, just FYI, I'm checking my phone because it's hard for me to see if there's comments or questions, but I will keep checking on my phone. So if you do have questions for Christine, definitely drop them in the comments. But I do want to touch on investing with you because this is the thing that I think is very daunting for, I would say, most people. I know, especially people in my age group, right? So, like even in just my friend group, I'll talk to people and they're like, I don't even know what to do, where to start, what to think about in terms with that. But that's really the difference between, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the difference between, building, having money and building wealth, right? That's a whole different thing. And that's what I'm interested in building wealth. So let's talk about that for a second.
All right. So, one of the things that I really want to do, I mean, and we could have a whole other
Yeah.
conversation on this,
Yeah. Give me like a
is to
30,000 foot view.
30,000 foot view is to really kind of demystify this whole concept of investing, right? In your future, in the stock market. Look, my philosophy is that I really like to take a look at a longer time horizon. If you think about the stock market, right? Most people, look, in March of this year, when COVID hit, right, and the market took a 30% dip, a lot of people got freaked out and they pulled their money out of the stock market and put it into cash. What we generally want to advise our clients to do is stay the course. If you are properly invested, it's really about the right asset allocation that makes sense for you and your goals and your time horizon, right? And the right asset, and really just and making sure that you are staying the course. I mean, I got to oversimplify this because I think people get so overwhelmed. So if it's money,
totally.
My basic rule of thumb is if it's money that you need to have in the next year to maybe 3 years, maybe you're saving for a down payment for a house, right? Or you're still building up your emergency fund, and you don't have that 6 months yet, I don't believe that money should be in the stock market. Okay. You have to have a certain amount of liquidity, to help you achieve your goals. Look, and so, because the issue is within a given year, if you take a look at what's trending in the stock market, look, stock market's always going to do this. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're going to keep the money in the market anywhere from 5 to 10 years plus, generally you're going to see a positive return, right? I also don't believe in speculative investing, which means it's almost kind of like, there are a lot of people that have accounts and they want to try to pick the right stock and time the right stock. And I should have bought Amazon stock, or I should have bought Tesla. What I truly believe is that when you think about the stock market, think about making sure that you're putting money in, right, for a longer time horizon, because over time, given anywhere between 5 to 10 years, you are going to see, or historical trends have shown us that you're going to see a positive rate of return on your money. But what's really going to be helping you is keeping the money in the market for a long term, right?
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, you're benefiting from time value of money, and compound interest.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? So I would recommend, when we talk about, identifying how much money you are planning on saving, like I said, I circled back before to the basic rule of thumb about making sure you're carving out anywhere between 15 to 20% of your gross annual income. Well, a portion of that can and should be deployed right into the market if it makes sense for your overall financial plan, and it makes sense for your time horizon. And then you just need to leave it alone, right? Work with a financial advisor that can help you along the way, check in, on a consistent basis and make the appropriate adjustments that fit your goals, right? And that's still the right asset allocation for you, and you're diversified. So those things I think are super, super important. There are a lot of people that want to do this DIY, and want to invest their own money. And I think at the end of the day, it's everyone's personal preference. But my philosophy to this is, if you're going to invest in the market, make sure that this is money that you're thinking about for the long term, right? That you're not going to be touching for a longer period of time, that you're properly diversified and you're in the right asset allocation for your age and your time horizon. Okay. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's a lot to think about. That's really interesting.
Yeah, there are a lot of fund companies out there that, they've got mutual funds that, they're going to make it easy for you. And if you're saving for retirement, they'll actually have their own target date funds, based on when you want to retire. There are some people that want to pick and choose their own stocks. And so there are wealth advisors and asset managers out there that will work with them on that. Everyone has a different appetite,
Yeah.
But my primary philosophy on the market is this, make sure you want to get in, you want to be in the right asset allocation, you want to be properly diversified, you want to make sure where you are, right, is in line with your goals and your time horizon, and you got to let it ride. Don't touch it.
That's really good. I think that, and it's very interesting, and you're so right, because it is just like everything, very individualized and personalized based on, not just your business, but your family and, all kinds of things like that. So that's why it's important to talk to somebody and get really specific about that as well. And I think that, just the whole idea sometimes of working with a financial planner, it just seems really, again, one of those barriers for people, right? They're like, oh, I don't know if I'm in the place to do that, right? Like, I think I've heard a lot of people say things like, well, I don't, I've heard people say things like, I don't want them seeing how much of a mess my financial situation is, right? So they feel like that they're going to be judged. Okay. So that's probably one reason why people don't do it. And then also they just don't understand that process. And so it feels like it's a big daunting thing, but it's not really. It's actually pretty simple, right. Especially if you vibe with the person, right? I mean, just like anything else.
Yeah. I think a financial advisor is going to be the most impactful if you allow yourself to be vulnerable, right? Yeah. And you share what's really going on. Then and only then, I think, then a good financial advisor can be helpful. And think of it this way, just like you would go to a lawyer, just like you would go to a doctor, just share and be transparent and be honest and authentic, because a good financial advisor is in this business really to help their clients become financially stronger, right? And help course correct and help, because it's about a relationship. These are not transactions. These are not transactional interactions. They want to grow with you. I want to grow with my clients. Like, I want to start off with my clients who are, young couples. I want to be at their future child's high school graduation, knowing that I was there to show them how to fund college education. That was important to them. This is really, but in order to kind of get the support, the help, the counsel, and the advice that you need, you do have to be transparent and allow them to help you. And allow them to help you, for sure. But I do understand that. And I think there's a lot of money is a very emotionally charged subject. And
it is.
And it's really, and it can be very, very difficult to make decisions, even if you know that they're in your best interest. And that's what a good financial advisor is there for. They're your accountability partner. but they're also there to show you how these decisions are going to make such a positive impact in your life, you know? And a lot of times, for some people, it just boils down to just seeing the math on paper.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's almost, you just need literally a verbal hug, right? From your financial advisor saying, listen, by doing this, you are going to sleep better at night. You know, you are making the right decision. So, you know, it's important to be able to have that kind of a trust dynamic with your financial advisor. And if you don't have one, or if you're working with one where that doesn't exist, you know, that's really important to address, for sure.
I agree. That's awesome. Such good info. Such good info. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us. Like I said, you know, as photographers, we don't tend to necessarily, you know, and there's like, just like in any group, there's going to be some people who it comes naturally to them. But in my experience, and especially in coaching so many people, especially women, I have noticed that this is a very big, like, emotionally charged subject with them. So it's one of those things that I think that we just need to be talking about more, just to make it more normal.
I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And listen, when you can check the box off of these things, it allows you to focus, put your energy, your mind, and your heart towards the, you know, the areas of your life that you're passionate about. And work doesn't have to feel like such a, God, I got to make it or break it, right? In my life, if it's like you can enjoy your work for the work, because you know fundamentally and foundationally you've put some things in place to allow you to focus more on what you're passionate about. So, and that's really important.
So tell people where they can find you. I'm going to put this too in the group. I'll link it all out, but tell people where they can find you if they have questions, or if they want to follow you for tips or anything like that.
Thank you for the ability to do so. Yes, you can. I'm on Facebook and Instagram under ChristineJoyLuxSarno.com. So you can send me a DM. You can also email me at Christine.Sarno@NM Northwestern Mutual, so nm.com, if you want to just hit me straight up on my business email too.
Okay, cool.
And I'm here. Any questions, if I can be of any help, I welcome, you know, the opportunity to meet any members of your community, to be a resource. And if there's anything that I can share to help them feel good about next year, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you so much. I'm going to put those in the comments, you guys, so that you can find them. And thanks so much. It was so nice to see you too. I know we chat over text and stuff, but I haven't seen your face in a while, so it's nice.
I love seeing you, and thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be on your
You're so welcome.
platform. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, my dear. Okay,
bye.